In the year 1846, the United States was consumed by a powerful and intoxicating idea. It was called manifest destiny, the belief that Americans were divinely destined to expand westward across the continent, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific coast. This belief promised land, freedom, and opportunity to anyone willing to chase it. Newspapers praised the West as fertile and forgiving. Politicians spoke of destiny and expansion. Stories traveled faster than facts, painting California as a land where winters were gentle, soil was rich, and fortune waited patiently for those brave enough to arrive. For thousands of Americans living in overcrowded towns or struggling on failing farms, California did not feel distant or dangerous. It felt inevitable. It felt like hope. Among those who believed in this promise were a group of ordinary families, men and women who were not searching for adventure, but stability. Parents who wanted land for their children. Farmers who dreamed of fertile valleys. Families who believed that suffering now would lead to comfort later. They sold their homes, packed their wagons, gathered their oxen, and said goodbye to everything familiar. They had no idea that the journey they were beginning would become one of the most horrifying survival stories ever recorded in American history. History would remember them as the Donner Party. This story does not begin with tragedy. It begins with optimism. George Donner was a respected farmer from Illinois, known by those around him as thoughtful, patient, and deeply devoted to his family. His younger brother Jacob shared his determination. Traveling alongside them was James Reed, a businessman whose wealth allowed him to contribute wagons, supplies, and leadership to the group. Together with dozens of other families, they formed a wagon train bound for California. Their group eventually numbered nearly 90 people, infants, children, parents, and elderly relatives, all moving west together with shared hope and trust. The early weeks of the journey unfolded much like countless others before it. Wagons creaked beneath heavy loads. Oxen pulled steadily across open plains. Campfires burned at night as families shared meals, laughter, and stories about the lives they would build once they arrived. Rivers were crossed with caution. Wheels broke and were repaired. Minor illnesses came and went. These hardships were expected, even welcomed as part of the journey. Letters written home spoke of adventure and promise. Spirits were high. The trail felt alive with possibility. At this point, nothing felt wrong. If you're finding this story compelling so far, consider subscribing to the channel. These long-form historical documentaries take significant time and research, and your support helps keep stories like this alive. Now let's continue. As the wagon train moved farther west, time became an invisible enemy. The Donner Party had started later in the season than recommended, and winter in the Sierra Nevada was unforgiving.
Get this wagon moving! We're running out of time!
Every delay mattered. Every decision carried weight. It was during this fragile moment that the group encountered a choice that would forever change their fate.
Why follow the longer trail when we can take this shortcut? It's clearly marked right here, and it will save us weeks of grueling travel.
They heard of a supposed shortcut, one that promised to save time and distance. It was called the Hastings Cutoff, promoted by a man named Lansford Hastings.
This route, right here, will save us weeks. It cuts the distance, saves effort, and we'll be through the mountains before the first snow.
Hastings claimed this route would shave hundreds of miles off the journey by cutting south of the Great Salt Lake and through rugged mountain terrain. According to him, the path was faster, safer, and entirely passable for wagons.
Gee up there, keep the line moving. We need to make camp before sundown.
What he did not openly admit was that he had never guided a wagon train through it himself. The idea of saving time was seductive. Debate filled the camps. Some travelers were skeptical. Experienced guides warned against leaving the main trail.
We are going through the cutoff. It will save us weeks on the trail.
It is far too dangerous. We must turn back now before it is too late.
But others, including James Reed, believed the shortcut was necessary. Winter was approaching. The margin for error was shrinking. After days of discussion, optimism won. Against wiser judgment, the Donner Party left the established Oregon Trail and committed themselves to the Hastings Cutoff. It was a decision they would never escape. Almost immediately, the shortcut revealed itself as a lie. Dense undergrowth blocked the way forward. Wagons had to be forced through thick brush. Progress slowed to a crawl. Days passed with little movement. Oxen weakened from exhaustion and lack of food. Supplies dwindled faster than planned. Frustration turned to anger. Arguments erupted. Trust fractured. The unity that had once held the group together began to crumble. When the party reached the Great Salt Lake Desert, their situation became desperate. The desert stretched endlessly, flat, lifeless, and merciless. There was no water, no grass. The sun beat down without mercy. Oxen collapsed where they stood. Some were shot to end their suffering. Others simply fell and never rose again. Wagons were abandoned. Supplies were lost forever. The desert stole not only resources but time. And time was something the Donner Party could no longer afford. Weeks passed. Hope thinned. Tragedy struck again when a heated argument turned violent, resulting in the death of Teamster John Snyder. James Reed, responsible for the fatal blow, was banished from the group. He was forced to continue toward California alone, leaving behind his wife and children. His exile removed one of the party's strongest leaders at the worst possible moment. The group pressed on, fractured, exhausted, and late. As the trail climbed higher, winter revealed itself.
We shouldn't have taken this shortcut.
It's getting dark. We must keep moving.
Nights turned bitterly cold. Snow dusted distant peaks. Storm clouds gathered ahead. Native Americans warned the travelers that winter storms were coming and that the mountain passes would soon be impassable. The Donner Party pushed forward anyway. Turning back was no longer possible. They had no choice but to gamble everything on one final push. Then, in late October of 1846, the snow came early. What began as light snowfall quickly became relentless. Snowdrifts swallowed paths. Wagons froze in place. Animals panicked. The mountains closed around them like a trap. After one final failed attempt to move forward, the decision was made to stop and build winter camps near Truckee Lake. They believed the snow would melt soon. It did not. The camps were crude and desperate. Cabins were built from fallen logs. Tents were reinforced with hides. Snow piled up faster than it could be cleared. Food supplies were carefully rationed, but they were nowhere near enough. Weeks turned into months. Storms isolated the camps completely. No help could reach them. They were alone. Starvation arrived slowly, then all at once. Oxen were eaten down to the bone. Dogs disappeared. Hides were boiled for nourishment. Children cried from hunger. Adults grew weak and delirious. Frostbite claimed fingers and toes. Illness spread. Death became familiar. At this point in the story, if you're still watching, take a moment to subscribe. These stories are difficult, important, and often forgotten, and your support ensures they continue to be told. Desperation eventually gave birth to one final gamble. In December of 1846, a small group attempted the impossible, crossing the snow-covered Sierra Nevada on foot to seek help. They would later be known as the Forlorn Hope. Their journey was a nightmare. Snow blinded them. Cold stole their strength. Food ran out almost immediately. One by one, members collapsed and died. When death claimed the first among them, the survivors faced an unthinkable choice: cannibalism. It was not chosen lightly. It was chosen to live. Weeks later, A handful reached California alive. Rescue missions followed, but time was running out. Back at the lake, starvation consumed everything. Cannibalism began in secrecy, then became unavoidable. Mothers faced impossible decisions. Children were protected from the truth when possible. Many survivors would never speak of these months again. Between February and April of 1847, rescue parties arrived. Each found scenes worse than the last. Emaciated survivors, silent cabins, bodies preserved in snow. Of nearly 90 who began the journey, only 48 survived. George Donner did not, nor did his wife. Families were destroyed. Survivors carried lifelong trauma. Newspapers sensationalized their suffering. Society judged them harshly. But history remembers the truth. The Donner Party tragedy is not simply a story about cannibalism. It is a story about human limits, flawed decisions, and nature's indifference. It is a reminder that optimism without caution can become deadly. Today, the mountains stand silent. The lake is calm. But the past remains frozen beneath the snow. And it leaves us with one haunting question. What would you have done?